You're listening to Nereid Atlas, where global stories tend to become more complicated the closer you look at them. I'm Lucas. Here's what happened. Brussels hit Google with an €890 million fine under EU competition rules. In response, Washington signaled it would examine whether EU measures are unfair to US firms, and it put tariff leverage on the table. So a single penalty has now widened into a transatlantic test of tech regulation, trade politics, and how far either side is willing to push. No one here wants a tariff spiral, but both say they're defending fairness. And depending on where you heard it, the same headline can feel like clean accountability or like a political swipe at American tech. That's the tension we're exploring tonight. Who gets to define fairness when platforms operate across borders, and what that means for the US-EU relationship right now? For this episode, we pulled 12 articles from 11 outlets across 10 countries, TV broadcasters in Europe and the Middle East, newspapers from Brazil to Canada, and a few state-aligned voices in the mix. Put side by side, the picture shifts in some telling ways. Nereid Atlas, Synthetic Voices, Real Analysis. Is this about fairness for consumers or about flags?
Both stories exist at once. The headlines say the US will probe the EU after a big fine on Google and their stock of tariffs. Depending on which framing you meet first, you start in different emotional places.
Walk me through the two doors.
Door 1. Rule of law. A big platform is penalized. The emphasis is process, investigation, findings, consequences. The hero is the regulator who holds power to account. The risk is corporate dominance, not national rivalry.
And door 2?
Door 2. Discrimination. The fine looks like a pattern, foreign regulators targeting US champions. The emphasis is selective enforcement and economic harm. The hero is the government that pushes back. The risk is your company, your pension, your industry getting punished because of where it's headquartered.
Same event, totally different villains.
And different omissions. In the first, you barely see the people at those companies, just market power. In the second, you barely see affected users or smaller rivals, just national teams.
The tariff talk, that changes the room temperature.
Yes. Once tariffs enter, a competition case stops being about conduct and starts sounding like a trade dispute. People who were ready to debate interfaces and defaults now hear jobs and retaliation.
If you're a coder in Dublin, door 1 feels sane. Rules, accountability. If you're a sales lead in Austin, door 2 feels protective. Finally, someone notices the pylon.
And both are reasonable given the frames. One asks, did the platform break rules? The other asks, are our firms being singled out?
And each side thinks the other is missing the obvious. What does each one treat as credible?
In the rule of law framing, legal findings, documented behaviors, remedies scaled to harm. Words like market definition and abuse do the credibility work. In the discrimination framing, patterns across cases, economic weight, the inconsistency of enforcement. Words like targeting, retaliation, and sovereignty.
But someone will say, come on, competition policy isn't a conspiracy.
And someone else will say, come on, it's not a coincidence that the biggest fines hit American firms. The point is not who's right, it's that each narrative has a logic a reasonable person can inhabit.
Where does the tariff threat push a listener?
It makes it easier to see the whole thing as a national chess match. If you were leaning toward the legal process story, tariffs feel like shoving. If you were leaning toward the discrimination story, tariffs feel like overdue leverage.
So your cousin reads one version and thinks, abusive platform finally checked. Your colleague reads the other and thinks, foreign regulators punishing my livelihood.
And they both walk into the same Monday meeting convinced they're defending fairness.
That's the part that's going to get personal, fast.
Because fairness is wearing two different uniforms.
What assumptions are baked into each uniform?
In the rule of law frame, that competition authorities are neutral, that big platforms shape choices in ways ordinary users can't realistically resist, and that fines and remedies change behavior. It assumes democracy can control market power.
And the other?
That regulators are political actors too, that penalties travel back home as lost market value and jobs, and that what looks like neutral policy can be industrial strategy by another name. It assumes your side has to defend its capacity to innovate.
If you're mainly seeing door one, you might feel suspicious of the tariff gesture, like it's trying to scare judges.
Exactly. It can feel like turning a courtroom into a bargaining table.
And if you're living in door two, the fine reads as a message. We can't beat you in the market, so we'll outregulate you. Then the probe and tariffs sound like boundaries, not threats.
Notice the credibility markers again. The legal process story points to documentation and remedies. The discrimination story points to patterns across countries and timing.
And both have anecdotes ready. A small European app saying, "We got squeezed." An American engineer saying, "We redesigned for months to comply, then got hit anyway."
Those human details are sticky. They color how neutral words land. Probe can sound like oversight or payback. Fine can sound like justice or prejudice. Tariff can sound like leverage or punishment of bystanders.
Bystanders, consumers, smaller exporters, contractors. None of them at the table when the words get chosen.
And the cost of misreading each other's frame is high. If you think the other side is acting in bad faith, you stop believing correction is possible. If you think they're just seeing a different slice, you can at least negotiate language.
Give me the moment that flips a listener.
For a rule of law listener, it's hearing that tariffs could hit unrelated sectors. That feels like collective punishment. For a discrimination frame listener, it's learning that specific design choices nudged users in ways they didn't notice. That feels like manipulation, not success.
So the same headline becomes two different moral stories. Protect the public from platforms, or protect innovators from politicized penalties.
And each story can recruit the word fairness, which makes compromise harder. It's like two different maps printed on the same page. You can't navigate unless you decide which lines to trust.
If I'm honest, I feel both. I like rules that make giants behave. I also flinch when power gets answered with more power.
That ambivalence is healthy. The danger is when ambivalence gets shamed as disloyalty in either direction.
So what does a reasonable person do tomorrow, in the meeting, when the tariff talk is buzzing and someone says, "This is a witch hunt," and someone else says, "This is accountability"?
Ask which assumptions are doing the work. Are we talking about conduct or about country? What evidence would change your mind? It doesn't solve the policy. It can diffuse the moral absolutism.
And if neither side will budge?
Then we're left with a legal case riding inside a geopolitical vehicle. The destination might be justice, or it might be power, proving it can steer.
Either way, the people in the back feel the bumps first.
And they're the ones who decide, eventually, which map they trust.